Let's get something straight before anyone gets offended tonight. Most people who call themselves different are just extremely committed to fitting in, with a different costume crowd. You didn't break away from the crowd. You just found a smaller one that applauds the same behavior and calls it individuality. Same rules, same validation, different aesthetic. But being an outsider used to mean isolation, risk, silence. Now it's just a brand. You buy the look, you learn the language, and then you repeat the opinions. And then you tell yourself you're brave for standing apart, while doing exactly what your new group expects from you. Rebellion, but make it safe, right? Different, but approved. Authentic, but still marketable. You don't want to challenge anything, mate. You want the credit for appearing challenging, right? You don't want to be misunderstood, of course. You want to be admired by the right people. So you swap one uniform for another and call it freedom. And that's not conformity. That's compliance with better branding. The irony is painful. You mock the mainstream while desperately monitoring how you are perceived. You talk about thinking for yourself while recycling the same phrases, the same outrage, the same approved rebellions everyone else in your circle is performing this week. You are not an outsider. You are just standing in a different aisle. And don't get me wrong, this is not about style. It's about safety. Real outsiders don't get applause. They get distance. They get discomfort. And they get misunderstood and left behind. But you get engagement, right? Which should already tell you everything you need to know, but... So tonight we are not talking about authenticity. We are talking about the fear of standing alone. This guy's identity. Because pretending to be different is easy, I know. But being different costs something. And most of you are unwilling to pay.
Unfiltered outsider. Unfiltered outsider.
Right. I see you still here, clinging to this. Well, I would say I'm grateful you're back. But we both know the truth. And you're probably just here for the next hit of feeling superior, so... Hello, I'm Noah. And before you relax into the idea that this is about other people, forget it. This is not a celebration of your unique identity. It's an autopsy, of the costume you're wearing to hide how terrified you are of standing alone. So, stay if you can handle it. Or don't. It makes no difference to me anyway. Here's the uncomfortable reality. Most outsiders aren't outsiders at all, They are loyal members of a niche. You didn't reject the system. You just transferred allegiance, right? Different clothes, different opinions, but the same hunger for approval. You follow the rules. You just pretend they don't exist. And you know exactly what I mean. There's a correct way to dress, a correct way to walk, a correct way to speak, a correct list of enemies, a correct set of opinions you are allowed to hold without being expelled from the group or the society. And you comply. Not because you believe deeply in every idea, of course, but because belonging feels safer than thinking alone. So you adopt a posture of rebellion without the risk of isolation. And you call it authenticity. But authenticity doesn't need a dress code. And you know that. And this is where the delusion hardens. You measure your different by contrast, not conviction. You're not asking, is this true? No, you're asking, is this opposite enough to what they believe? And that's not independent thought. That's reactionary identity. You don't stand for something, you stand against something and hope that's enough to give you shape. Here's the part you won't admit. You are terrified of standing alone. Because standing alone means silence, no feedback, no reinforcement, no applause from people who get it. So you stay close enough to the group to be validated, while far enough to feel special. That's not courage. That's strategic positioning. You tell yourself you are an outsider because it feels noble. Because it sounds deeper than saying, wow, I found a group that agrees with me. But real outsiders don't need to announce it, They don't perform it. And they certainly don't build an identity around being misunderstood. They just are, Often quietly, often painfully, often without witnesses. Because once you strip away the costume, something becomes obvious. You don't want to be different. You want to be seen as different. And those are not the same thing, and you know that. Let's talk about you for a second. Not the label or the aesthetic, not the story you tell when you want to sound interesting, no. You. Because if this episode is irritating you, it's because it's getting uncomfortably close to something you rely on. So, let me keep digging. You don't actually want to be different, right? You want the benefits of being different, without a cost. You want the identity, the edge, the moral high ground. But you don't want the isolation that comes with standing alone. Look at how carefully you manage your difference. You know exactly who it's safe to challenge, right? You know which opinions get applause. You know when to be loud and when to stay conveniently quiet. That's not rebellion. That's strategy. You're not outside the system. You're playing a role inside it. Ask yourself something, honestly, without a performance, alright? If the people who agree with you disappear tomorrow, would you still believe the same things? If there was no audience to impress, would you still dress the same way? Speak the same way? Think the same way? Or would your difference quietly dissolve once nobody was watching? Because that answer matters more than any label you use. Here's the part that stings. Real individuality doesn't feel empowering at first, it feels lonely. It doesn't come with instant validation. It doesn't come with a community handbook. It doesn't come for sure with a ready-made identity you can wear. It comes with doubt, with silence, with long stretches where nobody confirms you are doing the right thing. And that's why most people don't want it, They want distinction without distance, identity without risk, freedom without solitude. So they perform being different, safely, collectively, predictably. And the tragedy is not that you are fake, It's because you never gave yourselves a chance to find out who do you be without the costume. You never stayed long enough in the quiet to develop conviction, You just swapped crowns and call it growth. Look at me. I'm here. Every week, 3 times a week, dropping these pieces of reality into the void. But the truth is I don't care if I'm talking to one person, Just to you. Or maybe to 100. Or maybe to a crowd of outsiders who decided to stop pretending for 10 minutes. We never know. That's what being an outsider actually means, I don't expect to be accepted. I don't need you to agree with me to feel validated. I just expect to be heard. Because my job is not to entertain you. It's to ensure that at least 3 times a week someone tells you the things exactly as they are, without the filters of convenience. So, if you are alone on that side, well, we are in the right place. If there are many of us, well, we are just a lot of outsiders being alone together. The numbers don't change the message. They never did. So, if this feels uncomfortable, good. That's usually what happens when a self-image starts to crack. So, I know, you are in a rush. But before you rush to defend yourself or mentally list all the ways this doesn't apply to you, think about the last time you went against your own group. Not publicly or performatively, but actually against them. When was the last time you risked losing approval instead of correcting it? Here's the truth most people avoid, being different isn't something you announce. It's something you endure. And if your version of being an outsider comes with constant validation, support, and applause, you are not outside anything. You're just very well positioned. Now, let's see if you can answer this without turning into a personality trait again. Go to the Unfiltered Outsider sources at Unfiltered and send me one sentence. No explanation, no branding, no justification. Just the answer. What belief do you hold that would still exist if nobody agreed with you? Send it. Or don't. But don't keep calling yourself different while doing everything possible to make sure you are accepted. So, 3 episodes, 3 illusions. Validation, protagonism, and performative rebellion. Same behavior, different costumes. Subscribe, follow, or don't. Just remember this. Real outsiders don't need to tell you who they are. They are too busy standing alone. Uninfluenced, Unpaid, Unfiltered, I'm Noah B. Jackman, and this is the Unfiltered Outsider.
Unfiltered outsider. Unfiltered outsider.